Welcome. We're so glad you're here for Old Patterns, New Challenges, what personal history reveals about dementia behavior.
Yes, forward the slide.
Tammy Anastasia is a dementia care expert, educator, and speaker. She's also the author of the acclaimed books, Essential Strategies for the Dementia Caregiver, Learning to Pace Yourself, and the new book, Dementia, Caregiving, and Personal History, How to Help Cope, Connect, and Heal. Tammy holds a Master of Arts in Counseling, a certificate in gerontology, and a certificate in end of life. She's also a certified senior advisor. For more than 30 years, Tammy has provided counseling services, dementia guidance, emotional support, and care strategies to family and professional dementia caregivers. She also facilitates twice monthly support groups. Please join me in welcoming Tammy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Sally, for that nice introduction. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am going to begin the webinar by going over why the past matters. The past matters because we all have a past that shapes the core of who we are. A lot of times we forget about the person and what their past could have been, what their personality could have been pre-dementia, and we kind of get focused on the behavior, and we tend to forget that this person has had a lifetime of experiences. So 80 years of experiences, 56 years of experience, whatever the age, we have an accumulation of experiences that make up who they are. Then we have dementia can also bring those core traits to the surface. So what may appear as agitation, what may appear as being anxious, clingy, defensive, all will have some explanation, and I'll go through that as we go through the PowerPoint. Dementia behaviors often reflect past experiences, and they aren't just random symptoms. In my private practice, I listen to the behaviors, but I also listen to what the person with dementia is saying, exactly what they're saying. And often when I am working with a client, I ask certain questions that shed some light on why a behavior may be presenting itself. So we tend to think, okay, they're agitated, they're anxious, but we need to understand that there's probably something driving that behavior that is actually being triggered also from their past. And then also personal history influence present fears, habits, and emotional responses. A lot of how I may react and may behave may be patterns that I learned early in childhood, patterns that I learned as I got older, patterns that I learned as I dealt with life circumstances. So it's really important to understand that when we're dealing with behaviors, we really have to look at the whole person and what could be going on. Yes, the brain distorts information, but we still are going to have to understand, what is it distorting? Is it distorting because it has memories from the past and they're confusing the past with the present? So very important to understand how the past can influence or play a role in the behaviors that you're experiencing with your loved one. Also, recognizing the backstory does transform care from correction to connection. This is very, very important. We can get very impatient, we can get very upset. Those are valid and legitimate feelings. But when we understand what could possibly be going on when we look at the past history, it allows us to step back and look at the behavior differently and also think about how to respond and react differently. That backstory shed so much light that we go from frustration to empathy. So it's really important to understand the past. Next, I'm going to talk about what are all the factors that make us who we are. There's many, many factors that over the years that we accumulate that ultimately makes us who we are today. So some of the things we want to think about are childhood echoes. Early life experience shape how we feel secure, safe, and connected. And very early, we learn how to deal with life emotionally and we also develop what we call attachment patterns. So very early in life, we learn attachment patterns and we also develop emotional patterns. Super important to remember that. And I'll talk about the emotional patterns after. Also, family roles, the ways we learn to be within our family. Some of us are the responsible child. Some of us were the scapegoat. Some of us were the protector. Some of us were the nurturer. We all had a role in our family dynamics. And that's really important to understand not only what the role was for the person you're taking care of, but also what your role was in the family. And then also in how that role carries over as you're caregiving, as you're caring for a loved one with dementia. Also, cultural scripts, unspoken rules, traditions, and expectations that guide how we act and express ourselves. So, some of my cultural scripts are um, any adult today as a child that I knew, I still have to call them Mr. and Mrs. Now I'm an adult and I may see a family friend that I knew when I was younger, and I still say Mr. So and so or Mrs. So and so. Another cultural script, well, we had to wait to eat until everybody was served. So I still wait until everybody's served before I eat. So these cultural scripts you may see being played out as the person living with dementia, as their brain changes. So may past experiences, past cultural scripts also come to the surface. And then also coping strategies. We have capacity. When something upsets us, when we're afraid, when we're uncertain about things or we feel unsettled, we have coping mechanisms that we rely on. Maybe it's getting distracted, going to a movie, maybe it's going shopping. But with dementia, these coping mechanisms can tend to either go away or they may resurface. And you're caught off guard, you're surprised, what's happening? Why are they doing this? So it's really important to see that these coping mechanisms, ones that they might have relied on when they had capacity, are no longer in place. So now we may rely on different coping mechanisms. And this is also why the past resurfaces, because the coping mechanisms I used to rely on are not existent, then more of the past is going to come to the surface. And then also we have a history of unresolved wounds where there might be past hurts, losses, traumas, betrayal, or relationships that never fully healed. Those will also resurface as a person with dementia declines and the cognitive impairment skews present and past. And then also there might be spiritual anchors, faith rituals or meaningful practices that provide comfort and structure. So over the years, maybe you always pray before you say a prayer before you have dinner. Maybe you light a candle. These spiritual anchors, if we had them in the past growing up, we may not rely on them now, but as a person with dementia, those past spiritual anchors can be very comforting and reassuring. And then also lifelong passions, music, hobbies, work identities that connect with our inner self. It is really important that as we care for a loved one with dementia, it's really important that we still tap into their person. They still need to feel valued. They still need to feel a sense of belonging. They still need to have a purpose. They still need to feel important. And so if we know what some of these lifelong passions are, we tap into their soul. We tap into who they are. Part of their core is allowing them to be lived, and we tap into that. So every behavior does tell a story. And as a caregiver, the challenge becomes trying to understand what the behavior is trying to tell us. So it's our role to explore the history behind the behavior. So there are five, I'm going to mention five emotional patterns that we develop over the course of our life. And the first emotional pattern is independent or self-reliant. So what does that look like? The self-reliant, independent person is used to doing things alone, may resist help, or becomes frustrated when others step in. So what's beneath the behavior? I feel safest when I'm in control. I feel threatened when you're trying to control me. So this is important to know because if I'm used to being self-reliant, I am self-reliant because probably in my past I had to learn to be self-reliant, or I was raised in such a secure environment that allowed me to be self-sufficient, or I was raised in an environment where I couldn't count on the people. So I learned to become self-reliant. I learned to take care of myself. So what you want to know is if they've got dementia, you may think, oh, they're just being stubborn. And you want to start thinking, wait a minute, they're not being stubborn. What's happening is they're trying to protect themselves from losing control of what made them feel safe to start with. So if we're dealing with an independent, self-reliant emotional pattern, these are ways to respond. You always want to offer choices. When they're able to make choices, make decisions, we still want to offer them choices. As dementia progresses at some point, they will lose that ability to make choices, but while they can still make choices, we have to still give them the perception and the feeling they are still in control. We can manage it behind the scenes, but really important that we communicate that they still feel they have a sense of autonomy. They still have a say in the decisions. So we'll offer choices instead of taking over. Would you like to wash your hands first, or would you like to brush your teeth? Would you like to wear the red shirt, or would you like to wear the green? Would you like to turn the lights on? Do you want to turn the lights off? This sense of I still have a voice is critically important for people living with dementia, especially if I've been a self-reliant person or an independent person my whole life. We can still keep them safe, but in doing that, we have to assist and allow them to still have a voice, to allow them to still have a say, but we navigate it from behind the scenes. We want to still acknowledge their capacity, their capabilities. You've always been so good at handling this. Let's do this together. Or sometimes when I'm working with a client with dementia, I might say, boy, oh boy, I just can't figure this out, and I'll just show something very small, something very easy. You think you can help me with this? I know you're so good with your hands. And again, we tap into still focusing on what they're capable of and make them feel they're contributing, and we still get what we need done, but we allow them to participate in the process. And then we want to involve them in the process, maintains respect, maintains inclusion, and it also allows them to still feel some agency, that I can still make decisions even though we are guiding what those decisions are. The second emotional pattern is what we call reassurance seeking. This is what it looks like. Frequently asks where you are, follows you from room to room, and needs ongoing reassurance. We often call that shadowing, where they'll just be joined to the hip, they'll follow you everywhere you go. And one thing I want to say about the patterns is that the emotional patterns can change as dementia progresses. We could start off with a loved one who is self-reliant and independent, and then as dementia progresses, they become this person that's kind of clingy. And you think, oh my gosh, my husband, my wife, my father, my mother, they were never this way. This is the progression of dementia, that now a different emotional pattern is now resurfacing. So what's beneath the behavior is I feel safe when I know you're near. I'm afraid of being alone. We see this a lot or I see this a lot when I'm working with families where neglect has been an issue. I see this a lot when abandonment has been an issue. Rejection has been an issue. Trust has been an issue. I'll see this a lot. So when I understand that they're asking this reassurance for people who are reassurance seeking, and this is the emotional pattern, two things is super important to them: closeness and connection. That's what makes them feel stable. That is what makes them feel safe. That's what makes them feel secure. So what can we do? This is how we can respond. Use calm and consistent language. You're safe. I'm right here with you. You're safe. I'll protect you. I love when we spend time together. You're really important to me. These are all things to provide this reassurance, this reassurance. Sometimes we need visual reminders. We might need to put a calendar up and stating where you are, when you're going to be coming back. And also, sometimes we put a timer. I'm going to go into the other room for 15 minutes. We set a timer. But for people who are seeking reassurance, a lot of this has to do with you're my security blanket. I count on you, and I'm also very fearful, are you going to leave me? So this reassurance is about making them feel safe, making them feel secure. We perceive it as being clingy, but if you peel the layer behind that, you're really going to see it's all about them needing to feel safe and secure. A reassuring tone of voice makes them feel secure. How you convey it, what you say, your tone of voice speaks volumes. I don't need to understand the words. Your tone of voice is going to have an effect on me, even if they can't process the words. How I say it, they can feel and they will react. If it's something that's short, impatient, curt, you might see them starting to get a little anxiety. When it's very warm, calming, reassuring, they're going to feel very secure. So think tone of voice. We get caught up in the words, but think about tone of voice as a way of bringing some calm and comfort to them. Also, you can offer small tasks they can do beside you to maintain connection. Maybe it's folding napkins, maybe it's counting coins, maybe it's stacking things, sorting things. But the main thing you want to know about this emotional pattern is how important it is that they feel close and connected. I think what happens with people with dementia, they can't really understand what's happening. But we know as dementia changes, as dementia progresses, there's a shift in the relationship. We don't relate in the same way. The relationship isn't as reciprocal as it used to be. Although the person with dementia may not know why there's distance, they feel it. And so this is where they're going to get more clingy or more attached to you and need more reassurance. So I said clingy, but I really want you to understand that it's all about feeling safe, secure, and connected. Another emotional pattern is when they feel very guarded and self-protected. They're very self-protective. So what does that look like? They may withdraw, they may avoid eye contact, or they may become very tense and irritable when approached. I will often see this with people who've been in physically or verbally abusive environments. This defense mechanism is to protect. I'm not going to put myself in a vulnerable situation emotionally and or physically. So this person needs space. This person needs time. This person needs to know they can trust you. You may have been married 50 years, 40 years, 60 years. But if this emotional pattern has kicked in, we've got to allow them the personal space and the physical space to make them feel everything's going to be okay. So beneath the behavior is, I need to protect myself when I feel threatened or vulnerable. Often people label this behavior as being defiant. Don't think of it as being defiant. Whoa, what's happening? That they are not feeling comfortable and they feel this need now to protect. That's what we've got to look at. You know you're helping them or trying to help them, but their brain will distort what's happening. So if their brain perceives you as being threatening, they're going to kick in and they're going to become very defensive. They're going to become very self-protective. So you want to think about what is happening that they feel threatened. What is happening that's making them feel vulnerable? Another thing I'll hear often, I don't like you invading my personal space. We don't like our personal space or our emotional space to be invaded. So if you're getting this, know that we have to change our approach to some degree because they're perceiving our behavior as needing to self-protect. They're not being defiant. They're not being difficult with the intent to upset you. They are doing this for self-protection. So how do we respond to that? First and foremost, we always want to approach slowly and from the front with a calm tone. A lot of people with dementia do not like to be approached from behind. It startles them. And especially if we have this emotional pattern playing out, super important that we approach from the front always and slowly. I get a lot of calls on, families saying, we can't get a caregiver into the home, or the personal hygiene is such an issue. And if you think about it, what have we done to spend time to cultivate a relationship that's trusting? We spend very little time cultivating that relationship. So when I'm working with clients, we have to cultivate that relationship. We bring in a caregiver, and maybe it's you and the caregiver having coffee first, and you're showing the house, and you're going to have them do a project with you in the other room. And oh, by the way, Bill, would you like to join us? Let's have coffee together. We don't spend enough time nurturing a relationship, especially a new one or a caregiver that's going to come into the home. We have to nurture it so that this person feels safe and there's trust. And so we have to give them time and we have to give them space to build that trust. And I think that's something that has to shift as we introduce care, spend more time cultivating a relationship, the trust, and we'll get the care established, but somehow we're going to have to nurture that process. So you want to use gentle, matter of fact reassurance. We'll wait until you're ready. I can see you're not ready to do that right now. Why don't we wait 5 minutes and then you let me know when you're ready? Here again, we have to give them the perception to do this in a way that they don't feel threatened. And it's going to be trial and error. We'll have to kind of figure it out. We'll try some things. Don't give up if something doesn't work. Often, if it doesn't work, there's a reason. Let's look at why it's not working, might shed some light on what will work. But you want to understand with this person, we have to be very slow, gentle, and allow the process, the trust to build. And then we will get a caregiver in there and things will go much better than boom, we come right in. This is the caregiver. This is what they're doing. We see this with personal hygiene as well, right? We got to change their clothes now. Hey, how about we wake them up and here's some coffee. And how are you doing today, Mr. James? Oh my gosh, isn't it a beautiful day? I'm so glad I'm here visiting with you this morning. Nurture it, nurture it. And then eventually the two of us are going to help get you cleaned up. The next emotional pattern is structured and driven. So what does this look like? They get very upset when plans change or when things aren't done the usual way. I'm going to go on notice right now. If I get dementia, you all need to know this about me. I'm a very structured person. This is a pattern that I just feel really good when things don't change. It's methodical, it's very consistent, and it makes me feel really in control. And so when change happens, it really does make me feel kind of unsettled. And I don't have dementia, but boy, if I got dementia, I guarantee this would be one of my patterns you'd want to be aware of because structure and doing things methodically, consistently, and it's predictable keeps me very grounded and it does make me feel in charge. So what does it look like beneath the behavior? I feel secure when things are predictable. Changes make me feel unsettled and anxious. And so we know change occurs. Now we have short-term memory loss. I told you we were going to do A, B, and C today, but you don't remember. This is going to require constantly reminding them, today we're going to have tea, next we're going to do this. Now we're going to do this, next we're going to do that. It may take some back and forth of restating it, and restating it, but that consistency is going to make them feel very grounded and it's going to make them feel secure and it brings a ton of comfort. With people with dementia in general, a routine is super, super important. You think about yourselves, most of us have had patterns, a consistent or routine a whole life, starting with nursery school. Then we went to school. elementary school. Then we go to junior high. We go to high school. Maybe went to college. Maybe we had a job for 30, 40, 50 years. But most of our life has been very routine. And now I get dementia and there's no routine, there's no structure. Very difficult for people living with dementia. We need structure. We need that consistency. We need that predictability. Even if the brain doesn't remember, the body has an emotional memory. So, I mean, body has the physical memory. So that routine, that consistency keeps the brain engaged, keeps them engaged, and it does provide so much security for them. So I'll see dementia behaviors more frequently, agitation and anxiety, if we don't have enough structure in the day, if there's not enough stimulation throughout the day. So this person is really used to having structure. And pre-dementia, like I'll know it because I'll talk to clients and they'll tell me, my loved one, blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, I mean, there's a lot of people who have obsessive compulsive disorder and that served a purpose. And now I get dementia and that routine is broken, can really be unsettling. So I'll become agitated. I'll become very anxious. There was a gal I was working with, pacing, 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 pacing. And I said, before your mom got dementia, by any chance, did she used to do a lot of cleaning and organizing around the house? She goes, oh my God, my mom used to clean out the drawers and then clean them out again. And then she would always have, it was like so organized, right? So this is a very structured, driven way to deal with life. And now I have dementia. That structure is still very, very important. So let's look at how do we respond. Establishing and maintaining a consistent routine honors their rhythm. It keeps them in a consistent pattern. Yes, things will come up, appointments come up, something changes. We just have to walk them through the change and give them a cue, let them know how we're going to transition. First, we'll have coffee, then we'll go outside to rake the leaves. Give very clear cues. I know today, after we have coffee, we're going to do this, right? But they always need to feel that there's some pattern in what they're doing. It's that consistency and that predictability that they need to know that first this, then that. We don't tend to do that. We often say blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh my gosh, things are out of sorts. Tell them this is what we're doing, then we're going to do this. And then when changes are needed, this helps a lot is keeping something familiar with them, whether it's repeating a phrase, whether it's singing a song, as we're in that transition, the familiarity can bring comfort to that change, or they hold on to an object. Sometimes the object can be a blanket, it can be a sweater, it can be a scarf. We also have those robotic pets. They're fabulous, by the way. So anything familiar when we're going to have change helps to center them and feel in control. And the next one is approval seeking. This person, what does it look like? It watches your reactions closely, asks if they did something wrong, worries about disappointing you. So approval seeking is, if you're proud of me, you won't leave me. If I'm pleasing you, you won't leave me. Approval seeking is looking for validation, confirmation that you still care about me. And we'll see approval seeking a lot when we have people who come from a very critical family, very judgmental, and again, neglect, abuse, abandonment. This approval seeking is wanting your approval, that if you approve of me, then you're going to love me, you're going to care for me, and I know I'm making you happy. Because if I make you happy, you won't leave me. So what's beneath the behavior? I feel loved and valued when I'm pleasing you. If I do things right, you won't leave me. So a lot of times, caregivers might say to their loved one, I just can't take care of you anymore, and you need to go to a care community. So for a person who is approval seeking, that can be really hard to digest. It's not that you don't care for them. That may be, what have I done wrong? I was at just did a support group yesterday, and the wife said her husband asked her, "What did I do wrong that you put me here?" So we have to be very careful with our language. We have to reassure them always that we love them, we care for them. And I know what I'm suggesting can get very exhausting. I'm very aware of that, which is why you got to take care of yourself too. But know that the more reassuring, the more comfort, the more they feel valued, the more they feel important, the more they feel special, the more safe and secure and stable they feel. I'll often hear also in my private practice where the loved one will say, um, I'm sorry I'm a burden. I'm so sorry that I upset you. I'm so sorry. They'll start apologizing because I must have done something. And now I start getting very nervous. If you don't love me, if I've done something wrong, are you going to leave me? Very important to know that they aren't clinging to you. They aren't hanging on to you to drive you nuts. They truly are seeking approval because I need that praise. I need that affirmation that I count and that you still care for me. So offer frequent encouragement and warmth, and then also use affirming language. You're doing great. You're so helpful. I don't know what I'd do without you. Oh, you were such a great help today. I'm so glad we're spending time together. I love being with you. Super, super important. Those little messages go a long way. So try to avoid correcting. Correcting gets perceived. I'm a bad boy. I'm a bad girl. I did something wrong. And then all of a sudden that fear kicks in, that agitation kicks in, that anxiety kicks in. So you want to really think about what are ways we could affirm their worth, their value, their importance. Super important for people who are approval seeking. I'll see this a lot in alcoholic families where they're constantly seeking for approval, constantly, constantly, constantly. So it's just really important to understand these emotional patterns because our reaction is, oh my God, they're clingy, they're defensive, they're uncooperative, they're driving me nuts, they're defiant. When we can start understanding the needs behind the behavior, when we can understand that really all their behavior is about, I need security, I need reassurance, I need to feel safe, I need to feel cared for. So these are just good emotional patterns to be aware of that often are behind the behaviors that you may experience. So now let's talk about listening beyond the words. Again, I mentioned that oftentimes that behaviors, most behaviors is a need. There's a need. What are the needs? There's so many different needs. And it might be safety. It might be physical comfort. It might be emotional comfort, familiarity. I'll often hear, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. And the home they're thinking of is often the home they grew up in. So I might ask a family caregiver, can you tell me, do you know anything about the home? So a few ideas. So I'll say, you know what? Did by any chance did they have a bowl of fruit, on the counter? And oh my God, yes, every time they went into the kitchen, they always had a bowl of fruit on the counter. I said, let's put a bowl of fruit on the counter at your home. And all of a sudden, that triggers some familiarity. Um, I had a client and the husband, I need to go home. I need to go home. I need to go home. And he was a huge, huge Pittsburgh Steeler fan. So we went and we bought a banner and we put it up on the wall. So not all things are going to work, but this familiarity, right? My brain doesn't make sense. My brain is altered. It doesn't make sense of a world that I used to know. And now I've got to readjust and find ways to get acquainted with this new world. And you are that person that provides that link for them. A sense of purpose. Again, they need reassurance, autonomy, connection is huge. And then also that perception they're in control. That's the key. How do we give them the perception they're in control? So let's look at behaviors communicate more than language alone. So these I'm going to be sharing with you are actually real life examples. So shouting, I feel scared and out of control. That's the message, right? Shouting, I feel scared and out of control. Repetition, I need reassurance. that you're here for me. I need reassurance you're not going to leave me. I need reassurance that I'm going to be okay. Refusing care. It's often about feeling threatened and vulnerable. Often that's the case. Following you closely, shadowing. I don't want to be left alone. I don't want to be left alone. I had a gal and she came in, they moved her mother to a care home, and the mother was just beside herself and was breaking down and was telling the daughter, why are you leaving me? Why are you leaving me? Didn't understand. So I went looking for the past, and sure enough, mom had been to 5 foster care homes. Can you imagine? No wonder she is just beside herself. So with that information, I worked with the care home. I said, listen, mom's been to 5 foster care homes. We have to find a way to make mom feel she belongs, she's here, she's safe, she's okay. But having that back history allowed us to figure out how we could personalize what we could say to her to bring some calm and comfort. And then hoarding. I need to feel secure and prepared. This is all about preparation. This is all about not going without. Because if I go without, I'm going to be out of control. If I go without, what's going to happen to me? Hoarding is all about feeling secure and prepared for the what if. So, backstories to provide the content for empathy. I'm going to share what a lot of these were. Shouting, this person grew up in a home where conflict often led to shouting. When there was fighting, when there was difference of opinion, shouting occurred. So when this person now has dementia, guess what he does? He shouts really loud because he's not liking what's happening. Repetition. This is a true story as well. Alcoholic parent would disappear and leave child home alone. I need repetition. The repetition was, where are you going? When are you coming back? Where are you going? When are you coming back? Where are you going? When are you coming back? Alcoholic parent would take off. The child is home alone. Child didn't know when the parent was coming back. So guess what? I have dementia now. And now I'm worried. Where are you going? When are you coming back? Where are you going? When are you coming back? That personal history helps give us some insight as to respond and provide this person a way of feeling safe and secure. Refusing care. I had a client refusing personal care. I went digging for the past history, and here's the story behind this person. Parent used to grab the wrist and hold the child down as a form of restraint. Now you think about personal hygiene. Imagine you're that child that grew up in that environment, and now I'm coming and I'm approaching you. I'm going to refuse care. When we learn this was the past history, we are going to approach it and do it entirely different. Following you closely. This client happened to have parents who died in a car accident. So I'm going to follow you closely because people I loved died and went away. And then hoarding, this person, particular person that I'm referring to, was one of 10 children. And often there was limit food and supplies. This person now hoards everything, anything and everything. And when we understood this, we actually now have a plan for the hoarding. So you can see there's so much behind a behavior if we understand their past history, and what a gift that we have this past history that we can provide them with maybe a feeling of safety and security, maybe that they never even got as children. We can now provide that for them on this dementia journey. So also you want to keep in mind trauma can also resurface in dementia. I see it a lot. I hear it a lot. So old trauma can reappear as hypervigilance, fear, or withdrawal. So I got a call about a year ago, about 6 o'clock in the morning. Woman didn't know me, just called me because her physician said you need to call Tammy and let her know what's going on. I think I talked to this gal maybe 15 minutes at the most, and this daughter was hysterical. And mom's packing frantically, 2 suitcases. The care community couldn't control it. The daughter couldn't control it. It was out of control. So I asked her a few questions, and I said, sounds like your mother's trying to flee a situation that's very unsafe. Any chance there was domestic violence in the home? And the daughter's like, are you kidding me? Really? She thought I was a wackadoodle when I asked that question. The next day, she calls me up and she says, "Oh my God, when she was younger, her sister's 7 years older than her. When she was younger, mom used to pack up two suitcases when dad would become physically violent and take the two girls down to the neighbors." So mom's revisiting this personal history. Oh my God, I need to flee. My daughters are not safe, and I need to pack two suitcases. When we knew that information, we could work with the care community who wanted to kick her out. We ended up not kicking her out once we understood the backstory. And I also could help the daughter, provide her with the language to make mom feel more secure. A survivor of childhood neglect who clings to you and panics when you're going somewhere, panics when you're not within their view. This would make sense. This is a survivor of childhood neglect. Someone with past medical trauma is terrified of going to the doctor. I'm currently working with a family, and mom has had many, many, many hospitalizations as a child for a lot of medical conditions. Sadly, she's moved into a care community and the walls are stark white. And she is reliving this medical trauma. So we're actually trying to get the care community, believe it or not, to try to put pictures on the wall and try to do the room a little differently. But this is just past trauma that's being relived. So emotional flashbacks may look like agitation or defiance, but in reality, the back history might explain why they're behaving the way they behave. For example, a mother with a history of domestic violence yelling, "Don't touch me," when you try to help her get dressed is because she has a history of domestic violence. Again, you know you're not doing anything to harm them, but their brain is now impaired. Their brain is going to distort information. They're going to confuse information. They're going to confabulate information. They're going to have hallucinations. They'll have delusions. But their behavior speaks volumes to us about what it is we need to know or figure out. And are we always going to have the answers? No. Are we always going to find the answers? No. But the thing you want to understand more than anything else is when they behave this way, what they're really looking for is to feel safe, secure, and connection. A father slamming doors or pushing you away is not doing it out of spite, but out of fear of being harmed. This gentleman was criticized upside down and backwards. And when he heard any type of criticism from his daughter about what he was doing wrong, and she kept saying, "No, you can't do this," guess what he did? He went into the back room, slammed doors, and pushed his daughter away because the criticism and hearing no all the time was so upsetting that that's what he went and did. A wife who grew up in controlling environment screams, "Don't you ever tell me what to do." I hear this a lot. "Don't you ever tell me what to do," is trying to protect herself from feeling powerless. So again, when we understand the back history, the backstory, the past that could be triggering this, we can approach them differently and we can also respond differently. So what can be very helpful is calm, validating responses, restore safety and trust. And I'm not saying anything here today that expects you to be perfect. Not at all. What I'm just trying to do is to provide some insight and some understanding to behaviors that could be baffling and confusing and very upsetting. So I'm just trying to provide insight as to what could possibly be going on and hopefully being able to equip you with different ways of responding. You are going to still get impatient at times. You may still get angry at times. You're human. We expect that. But what I want to do is try to shed some light on it's not just dementia. It may be some history behind the behavior. And if we understand that, then we can approach it and respond differently. So speaking gently, they need a lot of reassurance, right? You're safe. I'll protect you. I'll protect you. I'll protect you. They're angry about something. "Thank you for letting me know that. I'll look into it." They accuse you of something. I'm so sorry you feel that way. Or I get this one a lot. You're just BSing me. I'm like, okay, there's our defensive personality, and anything I say, he's going to be on the defense. So I just say, wow, I am BSing you. That is not my intent, but I'll tell you what, I need to work on that because I don't want you to ever think I'm BSing you. That kind of stuff is that reassurance, validate, and then that reassurance, I'm going to work on it. I'm going to do my best because you think I'm doing this to you. That's not my intent. I'm going to work on it. Offering choices to rebuild control. Would you like to stay indoors or go outside? Would you like the lights on or would you like the lights off? Would you like oatmeal today or would you like toast? These choices, as long as they can still make choices, we simplify the process for them, but still give them a voice and allow them to feel independent. Using grounding tools, music from their era, a familiar prayer, or holding a comforting object. So about 20, well, no, longer than that. I would say about 40 years ago. So my grandmother got diagnosed with senility back in the day. And of course, we didn't know anything about Alzheimer's back in the day. And I sure wish I knew that what I know now could have helped her and it could have helped my dad and it would have helped the whole family understand how to comfort her. But here's one thing we knew about her. She loved her rosary beads. And we let her have those rosary beads. They were on her, by her side. She clung to them. That was her security blanket. That grounded her no matter what. So we want to find things that really make them feel secure. We want to find things that make them feel safe and things that make them or help them to feel in control. So obviously we're dealing with a lot and we often get caught up in words and we get caught up in always trying to relate to them here. And I talk about speaking to the soul when the brain can't comprehend, when words fade. What never fades is how we feel. Feeling, I believe, we can feel all the way till end of life. I don't have to be able to know the words, figure out the words, but what I do know is how you make me feel. So when in doubt, the brain is failing, you don't know how to communicate with your loved one, speak to the soul, speak to their heart, relate to their person inside. And we can do that by maintaining a calm, gentle, reassuring presence and tone of voice. We can do that by validating the emotion instead of correcting them. They think their money's been stolen. You're going to correct them. That's not true. That's not true. Oh my gosh, how upsetting you think that your money's been stolen. I'm going to take care of that. I'm going to look into it and I'm going to make sure we get all our money back. Nonverbal gestures are so much more powerful than words. A smile, a kiss on the forehead, holding hands, blowing a kiss, a massage, massaging my hands. When you get frustrated and words don't land, know that speaking non-verbally can say 1,000 things because of how you make me feel. I don't need to understand the words. I may not understand what you're saying, but your body language, your tone of voice, your facial expressions speak volumes. You could sit side by side in silence. Your presence can be felt. One of my favorites is when I have a couple and they always go out in the backyard and they have a bird feeder. And I just love they sit there for an hour. His job is to count how many birds have come to the feeder. And I love they just sit there. And she said, Tammy, we just sit there and silence, but we're together. And they can feel that togetherness. It doesn't always have to be verbal. Initiate joyful and meaningful activities, prayer, music. Reminiscing is one of the most beautiful ways to connect with a loved one living with dementia. When they think, they tell you a story from 40 years ago, oh my God, jump on that. Have them tell you about that story. I know you've heard it 40 times, but what a beautiful way of connecting with them on their level, in their time frame. And that connection and that bond They can feel it in that moment in time. You may want to start a new ritual. Again, a gentle hand massage, read a short poem, or maybe we have a snack now together. Offering comforting and soothing objects to hold, a blanket, stuffed animal, a fidget quilt, or even a foam ball. Anything that could bring a scarf, anything that could bring comfort and that is very soothing is very grounding, very familiar for people living with dementia. Imagine their whole world is unfamiliar now, and you give me something to hold, to hang on to, is going to be very reassuring, very comforting. And we also have smells. So sometimes I have families and their loved one might be agitated or very, very anxious. So I have a mother very anxious sometimes. She used to cook uh, uh, chocolate chip cookie time. So we go and get a candle that has a chocolate cookie scent, and we have chocolate cookie scent going throughout the house. Mom's much calmer. So sometimes, here again, we can connect with the soul just by certain smells in the house. I have another gal who loved the garden, lived out in her garden. So we found out, what flowers did your mother love the most? And we brought that scent into the home. So when in doubt, when words fail, or even if you're struggling to connect with your loved one, you can always speak to the soul in a nonverbal way. So, in conclusion, the key takeaways today are dementia behaviors are often biographical and not just random dementia behaviors. Also, as dementia progresses, the past experiences can come to the surface. Understanding how emotional patterns shape behavior helps caregivers shift their thinking from why are they being so difficult to how can I support them? How can I make them feel safe? How can I make them feel secure? How can I make them feel valued? Backstories explain present challenges and help us respond with empathy and understanding. And validation and reassurance builds trust, calm, and comfort for both your loved one and yourself. And you ultimately become the bridge between the past and the present. And you all are a gift to the person you're taking care of. You are that security. You are that love. You are that reassurance and that comfort that they need. And so I do want to thank each and every one of you for the care and the support that you provide, because you are offering them more than you can ever know. And because these behaviors come to the surface, doesn't disvalue your importance, your worth. Your value is in you and being you. So thank you, everybody, for one, attending today's seminar. And number two, thank you again for all the love and the care and the support you provide. So I have one thing I'd like for all of us to do before I conclude, and that is on three, would you all read with me this beautiful quote by Maya Angelou? So we could read it out loud together on one and two and three. People will
People will
forget what you
forget what you
said.
said.
People will
People will
forget
forget
what you
what you
did,
did,
but people
but
will
people will
never
never
forget
forget
How
how
you
you
how
made
you
them
made them
feel.
feel. Indeed.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
everybody.
much. Thank you,
Oh,
thank you, thank you.
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you,
Uh,
Tammy.
I'm going to take some questions. I think we have a few minutes for questions, but before we do that, I'm going to turn this back over to Sally.
Thanks so much. And thank you, Tammy. That was fantastic and insightful. If you need some guidance, Tammy's available for you for one-on-one caregiver counseling, family coaching, caregiver strategies, more information about what your loved one's history might be. Can you forward, please? And then, if you are struggling with burnout, stress, depression, grief, all the things that caregivers experience, if your family's in conflict, if your loved one is refusing help, Tammy can help with all of that. And I will drop the link into the chat, and you can schedule a one-on-one appointment with Tammy and advance, please. And then I really want to congratulate. We did a drawing, Kathy Papenfuss. Congratulations, you have won signed copies of Tammy's books, and I will reach out to you after this and get a mailing address for you.
Okay.
And then again, Tammy's books are available on Amazon. Essential Strategies is available on Audible. Tammy's new book is going to be available on Audible soon. So make sure to get that. I've dropped those links into the chat as well. And Tammy, we've had some questions come in over the course of the webinar.
Okay.
So maybe you could stop sharing and I can just read a couple of the questions.
That would be great.
So
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Good to see you all. All right.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today.
So Sarah asks, for structure-driven folks, do you need to avoid taking them on vacation or a family reunion, a situation when they will be living in a different structure with different routines?
That's a great question. A lot of that's going to be dependent on where they are in the progression, right? But either way, if you do take them, what you need to know is anytime we take them into a different environment, their brain has to figure out where I am. It doesn't matter if they've been there 30 years. The brain still needs some consistent patterns. So you want to be consistent in your verbiage. You want to be consistent in what you say. You want to tell them we're going to do this and we're going to do that. So it's going to be consistent messaging. I will say at a certain point, it does become much more difficult to keep taking them out of their environment. And you're going to know that because you're going to see more agitation. You're going to see increased confusion. You're going to see them be disoriented. So you're going to need to take your cues from them on what you're observing. If they're early on, and they're adjusting well and they're comfortable and they're enjoying themselves, we're good. Where it changes is when now the behaviors now we have anxiety, we have agitation, we have frustration, and much more confusion, much more disorientation. And if it doesn't happen there where you went, you're likely to see it when you come back home. So take your cues from your loved one. And if we're adjusting well, and we're doing okay, we're good. But once we pass that threshold, now we want to rethink, is it really worth taking them out of that comfortable environment? Either way, we want to be consistent again, still provide the comfort, still provide the step by step by step, that routine, that predictability will be in your voice and in your presence also to create that stability. Okay?
That's great.
Yeah.
We've had some wonderful discussion in the Q&A. There's one final question. I know we're at the top, almost at the top of the hour, but a lot of folks have expressed interest in this. Can you share any tips for helping a 79-year-old grandfather with mild dementia understand he can no longer safely drive his grandchildren? He is resistant and feeling humiliated. He has a history of being an excellent, safe driver and loving to drive. He's been having fender benders.
Yep. So in my first book, I have a whole section on how to deal with driving. Here's what I'm going to say to that. There's many, many, many tips that we are going to give you that are going to be general tips. When I'm working with a family, I'm going to go for a deep dive and get to know the person who we have to give up the driver's license for. I need to know a little bit about them. And then that's going to also tailor how we're going to approach it and what we're going to say. So again, knowing their personality, knowing who they were, understanding, no matter how you look at it, it's the fact that I'm losing my independence when we don't have that driver's license. It's the fact now I'm going to be dependent. I've lost the ability to come and go as I want. I've lost that control. No matter who the person is, that's going to be the underlying layer. But when we can learn about the person and the personality, now I can take into account how do we structure it? How do we position it? How do we approach it? So I can't give any pat answers other than it is a very delicate, complicated complex issue. And it's probably one of the top 3 issues that is the most complicated to deal with in dementia care in my private practice because of what driving represents. And then now I've got to take into account this personality, this person, and what and who are they like, and figure out a way to massage it in a way that they won't accept it often, but at least we can figure out a way to present it so that you're not the bad guy. And quite frankly, if the physician has given a formal diagnosis, they're often the ones to report it. But this is a delicate issue. For just some general ideas, get my book. It tells you all about all these different tips that you can do. And for more personalized, I need to know the person, their history, who they are, their makeup and whatnot. Okay. It
Great.
is a very complex, sensitive